He was just a poor boy from Miami, the kind of kid most people walk past without ever really seeing. His clothes were worn, his shoes scuffed from years of walking cracked sidewalks, and his eyes carried a quiet weight far heavier than his age. Life had never been kind to him. Raised in a tiny apartment where electricity sometimes disappeared and dinner was never guaranteed, he learned early how to survive without complaining. Music wasn't a luxury for him. It was an escape. While other kids played video games or dreamed of fame, he sang to drown out the noise of arguments, eviction notices, and sleepless nights. Elvis Presley's voice became his refuge. On an old radio he found at a thrift store, he replayed those songs endlessly, memorizing every note, every breath, every emotional crack. He wasn't trying to copy Elvis. He was holding on to something that made him feel alive. When he finally stood in line for Britain's Got Talent, thousands of miles from Miami, he wasn't chasing fame. He was chasing hope. Yet as he stepped onto that massive stage, surrounded by blinding lights and skeptical faces, the audience saw only a nervous boy with nothing special about him. Or so they thought. As the boy introduced himself, his voice trembled. He spoke softly about where he came from, about struggling to survive, about how music was the only thing that kept him going. Some in the audience smiled politely. Others looked bored. Simon Cowell leaned back in his chair, arms crossed, his face unreadable, but clearly unconvinced. He had heard stories like this before, too many times. When the boy said he would sing Elvis, a faint smirk appeared on Simon's face. Elvis impersonators were everywhere, and most of them failed miserably. The room filled with that uncomfortable silence that comes right before disappointment. Even the judges exchanged glances, bracing themselves. The boy closed his eyes, took a deep breath, and for a brief moment it felt like the world paused. His hands shook slightly as the music began. In that instant, no one expected what was about to happen. Simon certainly didn't. To him, this was just another audition that would end with a polite rejection. But destiny had other plans. Then he sang. Not loudly, not dramatically. Just one note, raw, deep, and haunting. The room froze. The audience leaned forward in disbelief. The sound that came out of that boy did not belong to his body, his age, or his background. It carried the soul of Elvis himself, rich, controlled, aching with emotion. Gasps rippled through the theater. The boy wasn't performing, he was feeling. Every lyric sounded like a confession. Every note carried years of pain, longing, and quiet resilience. The judges' expressions shifted instantly. One raised a hand to her mouth. Another's eyes filled with tears. And Simon Cowell, known for his stone-cold reactions, stopped moving entirely. His smirk vanished. His arms slowly uncrossed. His eyes locked onto the stage as if he were seeing a ghost. The boy poured everything into that song. Every night he went hungry. Every dream he was told was impossible. Every moment he felt invisible. This wasn't an imitation. This was a resurrection of something timeless and honest. By the time the chorus hit, the audience was already on its feet, clapping through tears, realizing they were witnessing something unforgettable. As the final note faded, the silence returned, but this time it was sacred. No one wanted to breathe. Then, suddenly, the theater erupted. A standing ovation thundered through the room. People screamed. People cried. The boy stood frozen, eyes wide, as if he couldn't believe what was happening. He looked at the judges, searching for reassurance. That's when the impossible happened. Simon Cowell looked down, shook his head slowly, and rubbed his face. His eyes glistened. For a man who built his reputation on brutal honesty and emotional control, this moment shattered him. I wasn't ready for that, Simon finally said, his voice noticeably softer. I judged you before you sang, and I was wrong. The audience roared again. Simon admitted that he had expected nothing, and instead received something extraordinary. That, he continued, pausing to collect himself, was one of the most emotional auditions I've ever heard. The boy's knees nearly buckled. Tears streamed down his face as years of rejection dissolved in seconds. For the first time in his life, someone like Simon Cowell didn't see poverty or struggle. He saw greatness. The judges voted unanimously for yes, without hesitation. Confetti wasn't falling, but something far more powerful was happening. A life was changing. As the boy left the stage, the audience continued cheering, chanting his name. Backstage, he collapsed into tears, overwhelmed by the realization that his voice had finally been heard. This wasn't just about moving to the next round. It was about validation, about proving that talent can rise from anywhere, even from broken homes and forgotten streets. That night, clips of the audition spread across the internet like wildfire. Millions watched. Millions cried. Comments flooded in from people who saw themselves in him, people who felt invisible, hopeless, underestimated. He became more than a contestant. He became a symbol, a reminder that dreams don't care where you come from, and pain can be transformed into beauty. Elvis may have inspired him, but this boy was creating a legacy of his own. He walked onto that stage as a poor boy from Miami with nothing but a song in his heart, and walked off as a reminder to the world that miracles still exist. Simon Cowell would later say that some auditions stay with you forever, and this was one of them. Not because of perfection, but because of truth. The boy didn't just sing Elvis, he lived the song. His journey was far from over, but one thing was certain. His life would never be the same, and neither would the people who heard him. In a world full of noise, his voice cut through with honesty, pain, and hope. This wasn't just an audition. It was a moment where dreams collided with destiny. And one loudly crying faced microphone.